first burnout made me really seriously ill. My second almost killed me. I now live with 3 lifelong chronic health conditions. I was having like 7 months of constant hospital admittances and still carrying on working from my hospital bed. And now I look at it, I'm just like, what were you doing?
If I know that this thing isn't actually that good for me, do I want to abuse myself right now?
The more of us that we give ourselves, the more of ourselves we have for others.
We are ignoring these small markers and maybe even the big markers too. What would you say to somebody like that?
I think we just have to...
Welcome to Women Who Lead. This is the podcast that I wish I'd had when I was a woman in leadership just starting out. So my friends, I have done you a big favor. I have selected some of the most inspiring women in leadership, and I've assembled them in a series of conversations where they're going to share their tips, tricks, frameworks, stories, everything to support you to bloom into the next season of your career. In this episode, I am thrilled to have a most fabulous human with me who is Kelly Swingler. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. And we get to do it in real life.
I know. It's so much more exciting.
Person.
And I'm so excited to share Kelly with you all because literally Kelly is a burnout specialist. To the women who are listening, and predominantly you are women listening, we know that that's a problem. Listening, watching, whatever you're doing, we know that that's a thing for us, right?
Huge thing. Yeah.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So you are the founder of the Burnout Academy?
Yeah, so left corporate, started my own people and change consultancy. Never thought I would be doing any of this work.
Yeah.
But just saw it was happening more and more. I hit burnout number 2. I then found out that my replacement had died, and I was like, we just got to do something about this. So literally became obsessed with this stuff. And yeah, I've been doing the work now for kind of 11 years. Everything that I do now is at Kelly Swingler, so it's Kelly Swingler Limited. But yeah, I run the Burnout Academy where I'm literally like training coaches and in-house professionals in burnout awareness. I work with organisations. I speak all over the world about burnout. I have got a burnout club. Not that it's a club that, I always say like that nobody wants to join, but everybody needs. But it literally, like, if you're in burnout or if you think you're getting close, it really is like tools and tips. We were talking before we went live, right, about the yoga nidra that I'm doing on Thursday evenings, and the live kind of movement classes and flow classes, in addition to kind of coaching and goal setting and accountability and all of that stuff, just so that we can like live our best life as our truest self, right? Yeah. And ultimately what I want to be able to do is just prevent burnout from happening. So the Burnout Club is where you join to live a burnout free life. Burnout Academy, is where I do kind of all of the training and education.
So let's dive in.
Okay.
So tell me, what does it mean to you to be in bloom in life and work?
For me, it is like very seasonal. It is very cyclical. It is very much change. But actually, for me, the bloom is about the expansion. And I think it's every single time there is that, right? We expand and then we need to kind of come back into ourselves, and then we expand and then we come back into ourselves. And I think for me, it's that seasonal thing that's happening, right? Whether it's kind of monthly, whether it's annually, whether it's whatever. But I think I have learned a lot over the years about not just feeling like I have to be on 24/7, but also understanding that I need to kind of close down and shut down.
Yeah.
And have that bit of retraction, do the healing, and then kind of go again.
Which is beautiful, right? I mean, like women, we do suffer from burnout more than men do, according to statistics.
We do.
There is something about that. The truth is by nature of our cycle, we are in a cycle of, we're in a seasonal cycle. Of spring, summer, autumn, winter. We hit the decay and our body is telling us to rest and repair, all of those sorts of things. But so many of us live this divided life that looks good on paper maybe, but it feels really bad from the inside, right? If I'm a woman who is watching this or listening to this conversation, and I feel that what we're saying is striking a chord with us, and you're like, hang on a minute, how do I'm on go. Like, what would you say to somebody like that? Where would you begin?
I think we just have to start, and like my favourite question to ask is, who are you? Like, literally, who are you?
Yeah.
But digging into that, I think a lot of us, we deal with a superficial level, right? So it's like, who are you? Oh, hi, I'm Ruth. Who are you? Oh, I'm Kelly. And we'll talk about our job, right? We love giving people job titles. But actually, what makes us tick? What are our values? What are our strengths? What frustrates us, right? What's that innate inner part of us? And I think so many of us have lost that ability to listen to who we are and really tune into who we are. I think so many of us are getting to the point of burnout. Definitely what, contributed to my first and my second was feeling that I needed to be on 24/7, 365, right? If I took time to rest, other people would think I was lazy.
Right.
And I do think for a lot of us, we feel that almost we've got to be, I do want to say, like, in competition with the men, right? And that's kind of where I thought, if I needed to, say, rest once a month in terms of my cycle, people would think that I was failing. You're being a woman, And I used to really, really fight against that, right? Because I would see it as a negative that actually I did need some time out. I did need to be taking care of my body. I did need to be paying attention to my body. But it was almost like in the corporate world that I was living in, to present as a woman, to be a woman, to acknowledge that you are a woman would have been seen as a weakness, right? It would have been seen as, clearly you're not serious enough about your job. You'll never succeed. You won't do this. You won't do that. And so I ignored all of those signs and all of those rhythms and all of those cycles for decades.
Right. And me too, by the way. Me too. You're not on your own.
Contributed. I don't work purely with women, but when I see women doing that now, like, just listen. And, I think the body will give us signs about what we need, right? The body is giving us signs every single day.
Yeah.
And I think if we ignore the whispers as they come, we've got to start paying attention right when the screams come. And when burnout comes, your body is screaming at you to say, this is what I need, this is what's got to happen. And I think if we can all learn to really, really pay attention to those whispers and do something at that point, the body then doesn't need to be screaming at us in order for us to make the change.
And you mentioned the word success there, and I think that can feel quite loaded for a lot of us as women in particular. Yeah. We somehow jump onto this conveyor belt and then we're like, okay, but I'm going there, and I don't know why I'm going there, but I'm going there.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and go there. In your own career, how did you redefine your idea of what success was in order to create more space for yourself in the way that you have?
I left corporate, right? So I was moved up a year. And then it was all about, you needed to maintain that topness, right? I needed to maintain being the top girl. I needed to maintain doing all of this stuff. So it all became work, right? It was all about outcomes. It was all about grades. It was all about all of that. And I think when I went then into the world of work, success was the next promotion, the next pay packet.
Yeah.
Got one with me today. But I remember kind of having this target of, I will be successful when I can buy my first Mulberry handbag, right? I will be successful when I'm earning 6 figures. I will be successful when I get the director title.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're told it looks like, right? If you do not want to climb the ladder, if you do not want to get to the top of your game, you are not successful, right? That's basically what we get told. That literally nearly killed me, right? My first burnout made me really seriously ill. My second almost killed me. It wasn't until I began to really pay attention to my body, to what was going on. All of my family will say that that's all I ever wanted. But I also wonder how much of that was eldest daughter, eldest sibling, because school had say, if you can't waste your talents, right? If you're top of the class and you've been moved up a year, this is what your life will look like.
It would be a travesty.
You're going to keep on going. You're going to go to university. I didn't go to university purely because the career initially that I wanted, I decided was not for me. And I've got 4 degrees. I've got my master's. I was this year about to start another qualification to take me towards my PhD. And I've decided I don't need that because I know that I'm enough. I know what I know is enough.
We take a moment for that because those words, because I know I'm enough.
It really is.
I don't need another qualification.
I do not need a PhD to say to me, you finally know enough about the work that you do, right? I've trained doctors, I've trained medical professionals, I've supported them one-to-one, I've trained them in groups, I am speaking to global leaders all of the time, and yet I still had this, but I need to have a PhD in order for people to really take me seriously. I need to be Dr. Swingler. For me now, success looks very different. Again, we were chatting before we kind of went live, right? Success for me is more about creating balance.
Yeah.
Do I have the time to look after myself every day, right? That's a huge sign of success for me. As in, like, can I do my yoga in the morning? Have I got time to go for a walk today?
Right.
Am I eating like nutritious and nourishing food, or am I grabbing something on the go on the train or from the station or whatever, right? Those for me now are markers and signs of success. Whereas before, I'm not going to say that money doesn't matter. It does. I still have bills to pay. I still have, you know, a lifestyle that I would like to maintain. But money for me is not the be all and end all anymore. Neither is the status or the title. For me, it is about time. It is about balance, and it is about health. But that for me now is success, not how much money is in my bank.
Right.
Because I think even at the point that I reached my first burnout, I was earning a huge salary. I had lots of money in the bank. I had a very nice lifestyle. On paper, you'd have looked and go, oh my God, you know, she's really successful and she's got all this stuff, and oh my God, isn't she amazing?
She's made it.
Yeah, you know, she's awesome. And the fact that I still did not listen to my body, I now live with 3 lifelong chronic health conditions that are never going to go away. Because at the time, success for me was the status, the job title, and the money, because that's what I was told it was.
Right.
No, it's being healthy, being around for my sons, it's having time for myself, it's creating balance in my work. Would I have been able to maintain the same thing if I'd have stayed in corporate? Probably not. But I do know that with what I do now and the work that I do now, I am then working with some of those leaders to help them create some of that balance for themselves. But I think I needed to come out of it to fully understand it.
We have to live it to understand it. I think so much of what you're saying there is really important. Like, you've mentioned conditions that you now have through ignoring the signs, right? And amongst women, like, autoimmune disease is way higher because specifically with women, we are suppressing versus expressing what we are feeling, we are tolerating.
Yes.
We are ignoring these small markers and maybe even the big markers too.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And so I'm curious, because I know that this is very much your area of specialism. Is there anything that you would like to share with us about, statistically speaking, how does it look out there for women in the world of work? And, you know, and if we are feeling these signs, what shall we do?
Oh, I mean, that's like probably a week-long conversation in itself, like to really get into the details of that. But I think first and foremost, if we talk generically about it, we all know what our own normal is, right? You will know what your normal in your body feels like, in your body, in your mind, in your emotions. And exactly the same for me. And I think if we start to move too far away from our own normal before we start to do something about it, that's really where we're going to start to experience some of the consequences. I talk about burnout on a kind of scale of 1 to 10, really. None of us want to be at 0, by the way, because actually we all need a certain amount of stress, right? We need stress to get us out of bed in the morning, to help us achieve our goals, to get us on the yoga mat or out for a walk or in the swimming pool or whatever it is that we do. Right?
Use stress, right? Like, we need the good stress.
So we might call it adrenaline, we might call it drive, we might call it something, but we all need something. So we don't want to be at 0. But if we go to kind of 9 and 10, really, 9 and 10 is where we've got this chronic stress. And if you were to Google chronic stress, you'll get 3 million plus results. And it will be talking about things like autoimmune conditions. It will be talking about diabetes. It might be heart attacks. It might be strokes. It could be fertility issues. It could be hormonal changes. It could be our bodies start to develop like digestive issues. We might start to experience food allergies, food intolerances. We might suddenly not be able to eat everything that we were going to eat, so there's so many different changes. And I think for a lot of us, we start to make excuses for all of those, right? I mean, mine first started kind of sleep and headaches.
Yeah.
But it was, I just haven't drank enough water today.
All the time.
Right? The digestive issues would start, it's because I've been drinking a bit too much, or I shouldn't have had that thing after last night going out, or I shouldn't have had that thing at the weekend after however much alcohol I'd drunk.
Maybe I ate something that just didn't agree with me.
Yeah,
maybe there was something wrong with the food.
Yeah, totally. So there was an excuse for absolutely everything. And again, I think for lots of us as women, specifically for me, I can say, I mean, like I had like started periods and stuff at 10 years old, and they were a lot, right? They were a lot, like very, very painful. Every single month, like really, really heavy. And there was part of me, like I had learned to basically disassociate from my cycle every month, right? The pain I could park and just carry on.
I know.
And I did the same with my burnout. And I think for many of us as women, and particularly, right, because we're not taken seriously by doctors, and, you know, we know we've got all of this stuff. Somebody said to me a few months ago, actually, there's been more research done on like cow hormones than there have on like menopause. How is that even possible?
It's insane. So
I think when we look at things like that and we are told it's just normal, get on with it, it's normal, so I just get on with it, or we learn to park it, or we learn to ignore it. And I think specifically as women, when we do start to disassociate from our bodies, I think this is what's causing so many of the issues for us. The fact that we can work 16-hour days on very little sleep, not feed, we'll make sure everybody else is fed, right? Have you got a drink? Have you got water? Can I get you anything for lunch? But actually when it comes to, no, I'll eat your leftovers, or, I'll kind of do whatever. And then I start to feel all this stuff within my body, but it's almost like I can disassociate from it. I can say it's not happening to me and just carry on. I know this is a factor for me as to why I now live with 3 chronic conditions, lifelong chronic conditions, because all of the signs were there, right? The whispers were there, and I ignored it. I ignored every single one of them.
Right.
And even when my body was screaming at me, I still carried on. I mean, I was having like 7 months of constant hospital admittances, and still carried on working from my hospital bed. I could still type on my laptop, I could still talk on the phone. I never had a day off sick, right? In 7 months, I was passing out from the pain and still going, well, I'm fine. I've got this meeting that I need to prep for. I've got board papers, I've got whatever.
It is bonkers when we think about it.
And I speak to women, right, who are telling me they've had heart attacks, and they've been on a bed in a hospital with all of this equipment, and they're like, but I've got a meeting at 3:00 that I need to be at. I've spoken to and worked with women that are passing out as they're crossing the road and nearly being hit by cars and going, oh, it's fine, I've got a meeting at 4, I'm okay. And they're going with scuffed legs and bruises and,
and a cup of coffee for everyone.
Yeah. They're just sort of carrying on.
I mean, for me, so...
In what world is this normal?
I know.
And it's not at all.
Yeah.
But I think so many of us can go, yeah, that was me. I had one day, I was working in London at the time. I had come to Liverpool Street. If anybody's been to Liverpool Street Station, I genuinely think it's like one of the world's largest escalators that takes you from street level right down to the concourse where all of the trains are. I'd got really dizzy, and I had fallen from the top of that escalator down to the bottom. I was scuffed all over my face, all over my shoulders. I'd ripped all my tights, I had this dress on. And I was like, I need to get to the office. And it wasn't until I got to the tube and somebody was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I saw the state of myself, like in the tube train window. It wasn't, I may be really injured and something may have happened to me, but it was like, I can't go back into the office looking like this.
It's crazy.
So I rang them to say, I've just fallen down the escalator at Liverpool Street. I need to go home, but I'll be on the train in as soon as I can, and I'll dial into the meeting. I mean, we didn't have Zoom then. We had like WebEx conference calls that you could dial in from wherever.
Yeah.
And I was on the train doing my conference call.
Of course.
Because it felt normal. Mm-hmm. And now I look at it, I'm just like, what were you doing?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Staying on this topic a little bit, because we're both yogis, plot reveal, everyone.
Yes, love it.
And by the way, being a yogi doesn't mean that you're necessarily getting this right? Is the mind-body connection, right? We are walking around like heads on sticks, right? We're living up here in our brains, and we're not.
Yeah.
We're really not ever feeling we're disassociating from what's happening in our body. So as we're saying this, you might be like, well, that's not me, and no judgment, right? No judgment if that's you and you're listening to this, because the fact is that many of us can't actually feel what's happening in our bodies because we've learned to completely disassociate.
Totally.
If we can sit in a meeting being crippled by period pain and not even move a muscle and not say a word, like if I think it is literally insane the level of pain that I've experienced, and that I've fully just switched off and gone, great, that's a great idea. As I was like, but even the flinch, only a woman would have noticed, probably.
I think it came up on my Instagram feed yesterday. There's 3 guys that are in a library, and they're on one of these like period painer simulators. But the thing is, with these 2 guys reading the book, and one of them's like pressing the buttons. Obviously, they're in a library, and it's like you have to stay quiet. These guys cannot.
They can't keep
quiet.
They
cannot keep quiet.
No.
They can't read their books. Like it goes up, and I think they're only on like a 5, and one of them is like. And he's like, and his mates go, shh, because they're in this library, and he can't even manage a 5. And actually, for the majority of us, one of the conditions, again, that was kind of developed for me was actually endometriosis. I could probably guarantee you that actually mine is, you know, pretty much a 10 most of the time. And yet for me, it's like, yeah.
It's like...
And what? You know,
you just get on,
you just get on and deal with
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So this body-mind connection, right? So first of all, we don't judge you if you're disassociating from the feelings in your body, because we've been there too, right?
Totally.
And I know for me, it takes daily practice and commitment every day to come into my body and ask myself how I'm feeling. And that, for me, might mean that I'm literally touching my skin to make myself present. I'm sometimes, you know, stimulating different parts of my body to be awake in it. Sitting still isn't necessarily the way that I've been able to create this body-mind connection. For me, some moving meditation is better, where I've found my breath and then I can bring it into my body, and then I can actually be present for long enough to feel it. So I'm curious for you, how have you been able to create that connection for yourself?
I think in a similar way, right? I think some of it is trial and error and practice.
Right.
My sister has been into kind of yoga, meditation. She's a Nada yoga teacher, so the sound of yoga. She's a sound therapist. She's been doing all of this stuff for decades. And she kept saying to me, you really need to get into this yoga. Before my first burnout, I bought a power yoga DVD, right? I bought it in the John Lewis sale between Christmas and New Year. It came with a mat and a DVD called Power Yoga. I mean, an hour of power yoga when you've never done it before is just a no-no. But there was a 20-minute morning routine. And for years, that's all I did. I didn't go to my first class until I'd reached my first burnout. There was just something that intuitively, it was like, try yoga. And I did. So I went along to this class. And again, I'd always kind of thought, because again, with the conditions that had been created, like my weight ballooned, so I hated my body, didn't want anything to do with it, didn't want to be in a yoga class, didn't want to be being judged for my weight, didn't want to do any of this stuff, but found this teacher that was local to me. I remember going to my first class and her saying in the introduction for this class, like, this is your practice, it's your body, you do what feels right for you. And I was like, oh, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, right? And that's what she'd say, you know, your practice is what goes on your mat, right? Pay attention. And so over the years, I did think it needed to be, you know, maybe a power yoga class. I did think it needed to be sit in complete silence and meditate for as long as I possibly could, right? Looking for enlightenment. Yeah, like you just got to sit still, don't move, don't move. And actually, that didn't work for me initially. And I think, you know, similarly as to what you've said, you know, some of it for me was, you know, a lot of movement. Like I love like hip circling.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I love a good hip circle.
Yeah.
And I can sit.
Oh, hang on, I want to go as well.
It is. I just want to go. Right, just like this for me on my
It's
mat
great.
in the morning.
It's great.
I just love it.
We love it.
And then the other way.
Yeah.
No, I can sit like that for ages.
Yeah.
And again, I think some of those intuitive things, like, again, if I think back to like my teenage years, sometimes I would just like lay in the bed with my legs up the wall. And it was like, I don't know why I do it. One of my nieces was born. She would lay with her legs up the wall. And I'm like, it's the best thing ever. And then, of course, when I started yoga, my favourite yoga pose in terms of a relaxation is legs up the wall.
And if you haven't done it, gang, 100% do it. It's delicious.
Similarly to you, right? What do I need? That's one of my journaling questions every morning. Sometimes it is part of my meditation, but like, what do I need today? How can I be more present? How can I serve myself today in order to be of more service to others? And sometimes that is meditation, and sometimes it is a walk in nature, and sometimes it's barefoot walking on the grass, and sometimes it is curling up under a blanket, right? And just literally kind of cocooning myself in the best possible little kind of cocoon that I can be in.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is a really powerful yoga class, and sometimes it could be just laying on my mat and not moving for 20 minutes. But asking myself what I need and recognizing there is no one size fits all. And actually today it could be a really vigorous practice, and tomorrow I just need to lay there for 20 minutes.
Right.
Or tomorrow I just actually need to just go and lay in the bath for half an hour.
That's it.
And not do anything. And I think recognizing that, understanding that, and knowing that it's not about a tick box, right? I didn't really learn what I needed to learn. I didn't implement learning until after Burnout 2.
Yeah.
So between 1 and 2, I had this tick list of things that were going to make me healthy, right? Must do yoga daily, must go for a walk daily, must drink 2 litres of water daily, must meditate daily. I had, no word of a lie, must have had like 15 things on this list. but they were all tick boxes. I wasn't embodying any of them. I wasn't feeling any of them. I wasn't really getting any of that mind-body connection.
No.
Because it was just, right, I've got 45 minutes to practice my yoga. I've got 20 minutes to do for a walk. I must meditate for 10 minutes and do
I've
not
got
move.
to drink that water.
Yeah, I've got to drink this. I've got to do this. And everything just became a tick box. And then I got to burnout and I was like, but I've been doing all this stuff. Right? I've been doing it all. How have I managed to get here again? But I wasn't embodying any of it. I still hadn't created that mind-body connection. I'd just given myself more stress and more things to do.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I'm moving my body, so this must be, this must be how it's done. And it wasn't. And ironically, one of the procedures that I had to have as a result of my burnout, I had to have an endometrial ablation, and that stopped my cycles completely. It was only 2 years after that I really began to understand like the work of like Lisa Lister and Alexandra Pope around like honouring our cycles and honouring our body. And so even though then my cycle had stopped, I still have a monthly cycle, right? I may not have a bleed, but I have a monthly cycle. I'm paying attention to that. I have a week where I want to be like, and I'm, as a huge introvert that really would rather stay at home on my own. But I do have like 1 week of the month where I want to be really social.
Yeah.
And I want to be out surrounded by people.
Yeah, where Stella gets her groove back.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Totally. I have a week where I want to be like just totally like hibernating.
Yeah.
And I have like a creative week, and I have an ideas week, and I have a get done week, and and really just learning and paying attention to that. It's like, okay, like this is what the connection means, right? It's not just about what happens on the yoga mat.
Right.
It's also about what we do in a daily basis, right? Throughout our day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, I'm in tune, 24/7. I'm not. But I also know now if I'm not paying attention, things will start to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So, why is that happening? Why is my stomach doing this? Why is my head doing this? Oh, because I haven't tuned in for a couple of days.
Exactly.
So it is an ongoing. But yeah, for me it is, I want to say like how I do everything. I don't always do it. I don't always get it right. It's still very much trial and error. But it is listening, and in the best possible way that I can, giving my body what I need in that moment.
Looking back on the different seasons of your life, of your career, like obviously we talked a lot about the seasons within us.
Yeah.
Which season would you say has shaped you the most?
I think the one I'm in now. I think there's been lots that led up to this, and as I said, if I had not been in the corporate space and got to the point of burnout, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I might have reached burnout 3. I might have gone back into a corporate role. I might have still just been ticking things off a box. Yeah. Going through the tick list of this is what I must do to stay well and healthy every day. But I do think it's where I am now. I think I'm in a place where listening to myself, tuning in, giving myself what I need has really like given me permission to do lots of things, right? To set boundaries, to say no, to not feel that I have to be constantly people pleasing. I'm still a very loving, kind, compassionate person. But actually it's okay if I hurt your feelings by saying that I don't want to do something. I'm saying that doesn't work for me. And if you get upset about that, like, I'm sorry.
It's not your problem.
No, I'm no longer just going to do it because you might get a bit upset.
I know.
Oh, but Kelly, please do this thing. Because if I do it and I don't want to, if I do it and it doesn't feel right, again, I'm going away from what I need. I'm stepping away from like my true self. I'm stepping out of that place of alignment, right? I'm stepping away from all of that. And I'm going back into the shoulds and woulds to make you happy.
Right.
And yes, there are situations still when it comes to family, friends and stuff, you genuinely want to be there to help other people. But I think before it was a constant, I've got to do that because Ruth has said this. I've got to do that because so-and-so's asked for this. I've got to. And that's kind of where I got to. I was always bottom of the list. And I won't do that anymore. And I won't do it because I am checking in all of the time with what I need.
Yeah.
It rarely happens with client stuff, I think, because, again, the clients that I work with are all amazing and all of the stuff that I do, right, I've created it to do it my way. But I will sit on a Sunday, do a kind of a mammoth journaling session on a Sunday morning, planning for the week, planning for the day, getting all of this stuff out of my head. But one of my favourite questions is, what do I need to cancel this week? It's okay, you don't need to do that email campaign. You don't need to send that email. You don't need to do this. And I can just say, actually, it's not right for me this week. And I do that without guilt. And I think recognising and realising that actually the more topped up I am, right, the more of me there is, the more aligned I am, actually the more I have for other people, right? The more I can say, yes, I'm going to, travel to London and spend time with you. The more I can say yes to being with incredible women, incredible people, working with incredible clients, because there is more of me to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is the magic. Whereas I think previously, again, I suppose it's part of what we're trained and conditioned and taught, right? We must give all of ourselves to everybody else. If we keep anything back for ourselves, we're selfish.
Yeah.
And I've just realised that that's just complete and utter rubbish. It's completely backwards.
Yeah.
The more of us that we give ourselves, the more of ourselves we have for others.
Exactly right.
That's what I kind of see it being.
Are there any tips that you would give around learning to actually say no when you have to say no?
For me, it comes back to values again, and I think this was, I suppose, always been my checkpoint. And I know integrity is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but integrity from like really matters, right? And if you look at the definition, I think it's like doing the right thing, like even if nobody's looking. But actually, for me, it's doing the right thing even when somebody is looking. So just because you're there kind of over my shoulder, like, Kelly, can you do this thing? In that moment, do I have the courage to say yes or no?
Yeah.
Right? Do I say yes to please you, or do I say yes to please me? Will this take me one step closer to who I am, or one step further away? And I think checking in with those kind of questions, it was like, no, actually, like, this is really going to be difficult for me, or this is going to take a lot of my time, or I genuinely don't want to be doing this. It's going to make me feel really uncomfortable, or I'm not going to have the energy, or whatever. Okay, so why? I'm doing it to please Ruth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not a reason then for me to do it, right? There's got to be something.
A value exchange
there's
in
got
return.
to be something there. I can't just keep giving in that way anymore. So I think that check-in for me was the start of it.
Great.
And it's almost like I've carried on with that.
The question at one point is like, if I know that this thing isn't actually that good for me, do I want to abuse myself right now?
Yeah.
And that might sound like strong language, gang, but sometimes when you're having a word with yourself, you need strong language, right?
Totally.
You need to feel it. Totally. So abuse was a word that I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I would... It might look like I was just eating a little bit too much, or like whatever I was doing to numb, right? Like whatever it is. But tell me though, my dear, what's just one thing that you wish that you'd learned sooner in your career?
I wish that I had known all of those years back that I was enough, that I didn't need anything else, like just that I am enough. I think if I'd have known that even to prior, like as a teenager, as a child, going into the world of work, that for me would have, I think, changed everything.
It's such a big one, right? That sense of enough.
Totally.
I mean, it is at the core of how so many of us feel, not just women.
I think so many of us numb because we do not feel good enough. So many of us spend because we do not feel good enough. So many of us you might want to go and get yourself a PhD, but actually some of us are constantly chasing qualifications, courses, certificates, because we do not feel good enough. If you're doing it because you feel enough and you then just want to go on to better yourself, that's fine. But actually I recognised was chasing this career because I wanted to feel good enough. I was chasing the money because I wanted to feel good enough.
Right.
I was going to do a PhD because I wanted to feel good enough. And I already am.
Yeah.
I think that would be the game changer. That's what I would love for everybody.
I would love it too. And that will remain our work.
Yes.
Right, dear?
Actually, we just keep on going.
But look, you are a delight. I'm so happy that you came and hung out with us all today. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you too.
Thank you for being here. If you have liked this episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear some of what we were talking about. Go and check out our other episodes, and then also head over to ourtimetobloom.com to find out more about Bloom and how you can get involved.